Hey there, fiber junkies! Welcome back to The Color Cauldron. I'm Johanna, the owner and dyer behind Potion Yarns and the host of this podcast. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for checking it out. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I'm based out of Kansas City, Missouri, and I do this podcast out of my home, which is a 113-year-old, kind of quirky, fun little shirtwaist house that is in various stages of being fixed up. But this is my living room. I always get questions about where I do my podcast. So today we're in a little bit different spot than normal. I usually do it in my living room, but I usually do it on the other side of my living room. And today, with the natural light that we have coming in and everything, I was just kind of feeling the need for a change of pace and something a little bit different. And the lighting over here seemed pretty good, so I took a couple test videos to make sure that it wasn't totally washed out. If it ends up turning out that we don't like this angle as well or the lighting as well, then we'll go back to our old setup. But for today, I thought it would be fun to just try something new. And I have two of my kitties are ensconced upstairs, and then a third kitty, Phoebe, that sometimes makes an appearance on here, is running around, so she may make an appearance. I don't know, we'll see. From time to time, she pokes her little furry head in. She's really upset with me because we were playing with her toy right before I filmed the podcast, and I thought it was a really great idea to play with her so she would not feel neglected while I was working on the podcast, and then she'd go get tired out and lay down. So we played a little bit, and then I gave her some treats because she gets treats after we're done playing, to kind of signal, okay, playtime's over, here's a treat, now go sleep. And I guess she did not think that playtime was long enough today, so she's been crying in the background for a while, and so I'm hoping that she's done now and she's quiet. But if you hear a pathetic little squawking, it's probably Phoebe just telling me that she wants to play. So today, let's talk about what I've been knitting. I don't have any finished items to show you, as in things that I just finished recently. However, I am sporting two pieces of knitwear today, which you may have already noticed. The first one is my Orchids and Fairy Lights hat. I knit this in the Malabrigo Rios, which is their cushy superwash merino worsted weight. And this color is called Sandbank. And it's one of my favorites. I actually knit an entire cardigan out of this colorway on this yarn a couple years ago. I think it was 2016 that I did that, and I love it. I'll have to show that to you on the podcast sometime because it's the Buds and Blooms cardigan, and it's just really beautiful. And I had a couple skeins. I think I had a skein and a half, 2 skeins, something like that, left over that I purchased that I didn't need for the sweater at the end. So they were just kind of hanging out in stash. And then I acquired a book a few months ago. I got this little booklet when I was placing a Knit Picks order and was trying to get free shipping. So, you know, you got to get up to $50. And they had this cute little book on sale called the Forest Fairy Tale Knits. And this book is by Stephanie Dosen of Tiny Owl Knits. I have one of her other books, which is called Woodland Knits, and I love her designs, you guys. They're just really cutesy, but not like baby cutesy, like kind of fantasy. They're girly takes on kind of fantasy, foresty, fairy, witchy kind of themes. They're very lighthearted and innocent feeling. There are a lot of fairy tales, story type things. Even the names, like this one is called Grimm's Cottage Capelet and Gauntlet Set. Felted bunny slippers, hopsalots. I have to show you the picture. I won't show you the pattern, but these little slippers, you knit these bunny slippers and then felt them, and they look so cute. I haven't knit these yet, but these are definitely on my to knit list. They're so stinking cute. So anyways, I highly recommend this little booklet. It's really thin and tiny. I didn't count the patterns, but I'd guess maybe 10 or 12 tops. And the list price is $9.95, but like I said, I got mine on Knit Picks, and they frequently have book sales where you can get 20 to 40% off of the list price of books on there. So that's where I got mine. I think it was on sale for like 30% off or something like that. And I added it to my cart just to get me up to the free shipping. And I love it. It was kind of an impulse buy, but I think there was only one pattern in here that I was like, yeah, I'm not really interested in that. But everything else, I was like, that's adorable. I would totally knit that. So this was the first project I did from it, and it just takes one skein, so about 210 yards of worsted weight. This would be an excellent hat in my bombshell worsted, and actually my opera glasses colorway is really similar to this. It's a kind of a light, like ecru champagne-y. It's a little bit lighter than this colorway. Just a very great neutral that I think would look awesome in this hat, but this hat would also look amazing in a brighter color like Japanese Moss Garden, which is my green tonal, or Siren Song, which is a really bright blue, different things like that. So anyways, just wanted to tell you about that cute pattern that I have, and highly recommend her book and her other book, Woodland Knits, which is a larger, thicker book with lots more patterns. Just really, really cute stuff. And then the other thing that I wanted to show you that I'm wearing today is my Drifts Ridge sweater. I'll stand up so you can see. So it's just plain stockinette body with ribbing at the bottom, and then it has this really cute little colorwork yoke on the shoulders and the bust line, where you just do these cute little scallops. It's just 2 colors, and if you're new to colorwork, this is an excellent one because you're only doing the stranded colorwork for a few rows. I think maybe like 5 or 6 rows for the scallop where you're stranding. Everything else is just knit in one color. So it's a really easy beginner colorwork pattern. And I love this cardigan because it's very fitted, and it's very cozy and snuggly, and it just feels very casual. The sleeves are nice and long, and you could extend these and make them even longer if you like to wear them over your hand. I just knit mine regularly, but yeah, it's just really snuggly and just a good casual, everyday run around, do errands, or snuggle around the house kind of a sweater. And it's knit in fingering weight, so it's pretty lightweight, and it doesn't feel super duper heavy. So it's good for between season wears like spring and fall. And I actually knit mine before. This is an older project. I think I did mine probably 3 or 4 years ago when I first knit this. So it was long before I had Potion Yarns started, but I went to a trunk show, and they were actually selling this pattern and selling some indie dyed yarn, which was a really high-end luxury, like more expensive than just even basic indie dyed yarn. It was very fancy, and I loved it, and it was gorgeous. And I splurged and picked out a few skeins, and already had made my choices and put back a bunch of stuff I couldn't afford, and was like, okay, I can only afford like a few skeins because it's so expensive, but I'm gonna get this stuff. And then after I decided that, there was a girl working the trunk show, one of the employees of the yarn company was walking around wearing this pattern and like showing it off and selling the pattern to go with their yarns. And I fell in love and was like, I have to have that pattern. So I bought the pattern, but I didn't have enough money to buy enough of a sweater quantity's worth of yarn to go with it from them. So what I did instead was I went home and dug in stash, and I actually had some of the white color that I have on here is Jojo Land Ballad, which I've mentioned on the podcast before. It's just a super basic, good superwash wool. It's really great for socks. It's very bouncy and just very basic, and it comes in all these solid colors that are just really fabulous, and it's really affordable. I think at my local yarn store it's maybe $5 or $6 a ball, and you get like 220 yards of fingering for that. So for $12 you can have 2 balls to make a pair of socks or whatever. So I had some of that in stash in the white, so I just used that for the white, and then I purchased this brown color is a tonal, and I don't remember the name of it, but it comes from a local Kansas City dyer called Threadhead, and that's TH'Red R-E-D because she has naturally strawberry blonde red hair, and so it's kind of a cute little play on like a redhead threadhead, because she dyes yarn, and then she also knits these amazing huge wraps and sweaters and shawls and amazing like art pieces, and she actually sells at a bunch of local art shows and the Renaissance Festival and a bunch of those things. So if you're in Kansas City, go look for Threadhead. Her name is Marcy, and she's really sweet and really talented, and I purchased several of her hand-dyed yarns over the years and really enjoyed them. And so yeah, I bought this from her. It's a really cool mix of like cool and warm toned browns, and so I really liked how it created a really nice neutral sweater I can wear with kind of anything, but it still had a lot of color shifting. So yeah, I really enjoy hers, and I will look up and see if she has a website, but the last I knew she didn't actually have like a Ravelry or a website for her yarns. She just sells at in-person events, and then she has a few of her yarns a couple times a year will be at one of the local shops here in Kansas City called the Studio Knitting and Needlepoint. So you might check them out, see if they have any in stock, but like I said, I think they only get it once or twice a year. They get a small stash of her stuff, and then when it's gone, it's gone. And then if you're in Kansas City, look her up at local events, fiber festivals and yarn events, and the Renaissance Festival she's usually at, things like that. So yeah, support your local dyers, people. It's really good to do. And she's one of the ones that got me into indie dyed yarn years ago before I really knew much about it. So that's what I'm wearing. Let's get into what I'm knitting. I have been working like a crazy person on a couple different projects, and the first one is my vanilla socks that I cast on for our demonstrational video a few weeks ago for how to cast on 2 at a time toe up socks using the magic loop method. And I am in the middle of a row because these are my portable knitting socks that I keep in my purse, and I just take them wherever I go because they're vanilla socks, plain vanilla socks. And as you can see, I have 2 going, and I just started at the toe and finished the toe decreases, and now I'm just on the part where I'm just knitting the foot. I haven't been making very good progress on these lately because I've just, like I said, I keep them in my purse and they're just for on-the-go knitting, and when I'm home or at work and I have a break, I'm usually working on one of my bigger shawls or sweaters or something like that. So I haven't made a ton of progress on these lately, but I'm really loving how the colors are knitting up. I'm using a skein of indie dyed yarn from Leon Alexander. If you've never knit with their yarns, you need to stop what you're doing right now and click the link at the bottom of my video. Well, maybe wait till my podcast is over, but after my video is over, click the link that I'm going to drop in here to their shop and go check them out. They're incredible. They do brights like nobody else. They specialize in speckles and really bright, fun, variegated skeins. And they just have a really unique, bold style. And it's 2 guys, Jose and Logan. They're really awesome. Hi, Phoebe. Hi, Phoebe, dear. I told you she might join us. And they just do beautiful, beautiful yarns. But this was their February yarn club that they're doing, and I don't remember the name. I'm not sure if it had one. I'm sure it did. I just don't remember what it is. But this is the February yarn club that they sent me, and it just is knitting up so beautifully. It has really bright pops of little like pinks and bright highlighter yellows and this kind of pretty tealy blue color. So I'm just really loving it. They also are really good at leaving white space in their speckles, which is something I really struggle with. I'm getting better, but I struggle at it because I tend to love color so much. I oversaturate with color and I have a hard time leaving white space. And one of the things I love about the Leon Alexander boys is they do such a great job of leaving really good white space, so you get that really nice speckly, variegated sense. And I'm really excited about these socks. Also, their sock base, I believe this one is 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon, but it's really squishy, like really squishy. It's gonna make phenomenal socks, and my feet are already like tapping with excitement that I can't wait to get these done because they're gonna be so comfy. So go check them out, they're phenomenal. And then the other thing that I have been working like a mad woman on is my Oracle shawl, you guys, by Kristen Lehrer of Vine Yarns. I will put a link to her pattern below, the Oracle shawl. Now I am doing the full Oracle. This thing is a beast, y'all. So the Oracle shawl is a pie shawl, and if you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically a shawl that you start with a small little cast on, and then you knit in the round and grow the circle and just keep growing the circle. And there's a formula for how often you increase, but basically you increase at regular intervals all on one row. So you'll like knit even for several rows, and then you'll have an increase row where you just like knit 1 yarn over, knit 1 yarn over, knit 1 yarn over, or you increase incrementally all the way around, so it just suddenly increases. And then you knit several rows like that, and then you suddenly increase again, and it creates a circle. So you can block it out flat, and it just makes a nice, even circle. They're really pretty, and they're really nice, especially if you have lots of yarn that you need to use up, or lots of single skeins that you can make a variegated colored one. They're really great if you like big cushy shawls, or really like kind of old-fashioned lacy, really pretty shawls you can fold in half and drape around your shoulders. That's how I'm planning to wear mine. There's different ways you can wear them, but they're big. They're just a big circle, and then you have to find ways to wrap and drape it to wear it. And this one is really pretty. It's actually not difficult. Like the lace sections are very simple lace, and it's usually 2 to 4 rows that you just repeat over and over. And the brioche is just 2-color basic brioche. There's no like fancy lace stitches or anything. It's just brioche rounds, just 2-color brioche in the round. So it's really, really simple. It's not a hard shawl. But what is hard about it is how massive this thing is. Because once you get past the initial circle down here, you start getting ridiculous amounts of stitches on the needles, and you have to really pay attention to where you are in your lace chart, or you are going to get screwed up like I did recently. And I had to take out half of my row and re-knit it one stitch at a time because it was just half the row. And that was when I was almost finished, and I was up to 1,152 live stitches on the needle, and half of them had to be tinked back and re-knit because I was one stitch off, and so my lace was like wonky. I thought about leaving it, I really did, and then I was like, nope, this is definitely one of those times where I need to take the time to rip it and re-knit. So I did. So anyways, I'm glad I did because it's looking a lot better now. But I'm finally to the cast off, you guys. So I can't unfurl this because it's still on the circular needle, and it's massively big. It's ridiculous. And I don't have any of the ends woven in, so it's like dripping with little ends. And here's the thing. This shawl is notorious for running out of yarn. It's supposed to be one skein each of 3 different colors of fingering weight yarn, 400 yards or more. And I chose 3 colors from my shop. All of them are my hand-dyed yarns, and all of them had at least 400 yards in them. And I only have one colorway that had enough yardage, and that was colorway B, which is this, for me, is this blue and purple and black variegated. It's called Dark of the Moon, this color right in here. I had enough of that, and I'm doing the cast off with that, and I'm still going to have some left over. So color B was fine. Color A, I got up to about this point in the shawl, so all of that, and I ran out, and I had to grab a second skein, which was kind of frustrating to me, but okay, whatever. I did it because I was like, you know, I love this color, and I don't want to rip out, and I don't want to, I could have joined in a 4th color and just used up some of my like leftovers from other shawls and things upstairs in my stash, but I really wanted to stick with the colors I was using. And then I was working on the last lace section last night, actually, working on this little tiny lace section up here at the end, and I ran out of color C, which is for me this speckle on the, it's like pink and mauve and silver speckles on a white background, and it's called Pink Ruffle Panties, and I am using the Matahari single ply from my shop, which is 70% superwash merino and 30% silk. It's really beautiful to work with, and it's great for shawl knitting. But I was using it and I ran out. So what I did, I really didn't want to take one more skein out of the shop just for like 2 rows or 4 rows. I think it would have been 4 rounds, which when that's 1,152 stitches, that's a lot of yarn. But at the same time, I felt like, I don't know that I want to sacrifice an entire another skein from my shop, and I didn't have any leftovers because this is the first time I've knit with this yarn and from my shop. So I was really on the fence about what to do. I thought about moving in a 3rd or a 4th colorway just from stash, like I mentioned, and I just really didn't like that. I wanted it to stick to the 3 colors. So what I ended up doing was I thought, I've been working on this beast for like over a month, and it's just not, it's getting to the point where I'm just ready to be done. I love it, but I'm ready to be done. So I decided that I was just going to take off the last 2 repeats of the final lace section. So if you have the pattern and you're knitting it, I knit this last lace section. I did the lace chart A, the full amount, and then on lace chart B, I just did 1 repeat. So I did 1 round of the lace and then 1 knitting solid, and then you're supposed to repeat those 2 rounds twice more, so you have 4 extra rows than I do, so it would have been a little bit larger. And I thought, you know what, that's a big, by the time I block that baby out, that's a big enough section of lace. I'm okay with that. So I just ended it, and then because I literally was down to like this much yarn, I was playing yarn chicken, and I was like, it's just not gonna happen. So I just ended it there, and now I'm doing the I-cord bind off in color B, which is what the pattern calls for. I don't know if you can see how beautifully that yarn is variegated, but it goes from black to a couple shades of purple to blue. It's really pretty. I love Dark of the Moon. It's a fantastic colorway, and it's in the shop right now. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. Hopefully you can see down here a little bit more where the brioche section is, some of those colors. And the 3rd color, the color A that I'm using here for the middle and this bright green edge, this is Lady Absinthe, which is in my shop as well. And this is the Foxy Sock, which is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. So yeah, I love it. It's gonna be so pretty. I cannot wait until it's off the needles. But here's the thing, guys. I have blocked 2 shawls in the last week. And the first one was fine, and I blocked it and it was fine, whatever. The second one I just blocked last night, so it's down there drying right now. And actually that one that's drying right now, I can't wait to show it to you guys, but it's gonna have to wait till next week on the podcast. But next week it's gonna be coming out, and it's a test knit that I've been doing for a new designer, and it's so pretty. I can't wait to show it to you, but it's drying downstairs right now. I'm gonna show you a sneak peek of colors in just a second, but yeah, that one's coming. It's not quite ready, so stay tuned. But I was blocking that one last night, and I had to move. I have some of those foam, like, puzzle piece squares that, like, you can snap together on the edges. They look like puzzle pieces, and you can rearrange them. And I just got them at Aldi for like 20 bucks, and they're awesome. And I wish I had bought more, but I'd never used that kind for blocking before, and so I was just testing them out, and then by the time I realized I loved them and needed more, they were gone at Aldi, because you know how Aldi is. They have things in and then they don't have things again. When you go back, they're gone. So you gotta buy it when you see it. So I only have 4 of those mats, and I need more because when I blocked my shawl last night, it just barely fit over the 4, like stretched out. And I'm terrified to block this beast because it's huge and it's a circle, so it has to like go out in every direction. And so I'm really excited to finish casting off this weekend. I think this weekend I can finish it, but I'm terrified because how on earth am I gonna block this beast? Also, I have 3 cats, y'all, and they're like rambunctious little suckers. 2 of them are 6 years old this spring, and Phoebe, the last one the one that's running in and out, we rescued her a little over a year ago, but we don't actually know how old she is, but we think she's old, or she's younger than our other 2, so I'm guessing around 2 or 3. But they're not like old cats. They're still rambunctious. They like to play and wrestle and fight, and they get like crazy and run around, and they love when I'm blocking something, like tried to block on the dining room table, and they will just get up there and pull the pins out with their teeth, and they'll like roll around on it even when it's wet. It's annoying. So I have to block like in the basement or the spare bedroom and close the door and all this stuff, and it makes it really tricky to block really large pieces like that because there's not that many spaces in my house that are big enough for a huge pie shawl that's a big old circle. So I don't know how I'm gonna block this monster, but figure something out. I might have to take it to my mom's house and ask her if I can leave it in her guest bedroom downstairs in the basement for a couple days. Because they don't have any pets or any children in their house, so I might be able to actually work that out. So we'll see. Okay, third thing that I'm knitting, and you know me, I'm not monogamous, so I actually have a couple other things either that I'm about to cast on or that are like things I just put down and haven't worked on for a while. But the third thing I'm actively knitting right now is the Gaga For You Shawl, which I will put a link to below. Pardon me because I can't remember the name of the designer. It's Julie, it starts with a D, and I think it's Dubrow or Dubrouz, something like that. It's French and I can't pronounce it, but I'll put a link to the pattern below, the Gaga For You. If you are a brioche lover, this one's for you. This thing is all brioche, and you use, it's written for 2 colors, but you can use as many as you want. Like you can fade in as many as you would like. And this one I'm doing in 4 colors because I had 4 single skeins of indie dyed yarn, just single ones, that really looked so pretty together. I was like actually working on trying to find colors for a different pattern. I was looking at all these different fingering weight yarns from my stash, and these 4, I put 2 of them together and was like, these would look great. I need to find a project for that. And then I started looking around and ended up with all these other colors that looked amazing together. And suddenly these 4 just ended up getting set next to each other, and I like turned around and was like, Eureka, that's it, that's the one. And then I was like, you know, I was gonna knit this in just 2 colors, but now I like it in 4. So I'm doing 4, and it's a little hard to see the colors, so I'm just gonna show this to you up here, and then I'll pull out the yarns so you can see them a little better. So my color A, my number 1 color, is from Kristen at Vine Yarns. My first time ordering from her. I've wanted to for like a year, and I finally got some yarn from her. This is her Vine number 9. It is on her blitzed base, so it's the gold Stellina sock base, superwash merino nylon and Stellina, which I love sparkle yarns so much, you guys. I'm obsessed with sparkle yarns. It's kind of dumb, but I love it. It's really like a great soft lilac mauve-y tonal. And so this is my indulgence yarn I bought for myself just for just because it's so pretty. And that's my color A, which you can see up here. And then on the back side of color A, my color B that I'm using is from Primrose Yarn Company. And that is, I actually don't think this one has a name. If it does, I've forgotten what it is, but it was just one of her like oopsie potluck skeins that I got in a grab bag where you could buy 3 like oopsie skeins for a discounted rate, but you didn't get to know what they were. It was like mystery yarn. And I thought, that's kind of fun. I love a surprise in my mailbox. So I decided, and I love everything that Primrose Yarn puts out. So I was like, there's really no way I can lose. I love every single colorway I've ever seen of her stuff. And this is phenomenal because I wouldn't normally choose this kind of light pastel-y, speckly skein on its own, but it's so pretty and it's really excellent for grounding a busier, brighter yarn in like a 2-color brioche or something. And I don't know if you can see how this is knitting up, but it is just lovely. It has this like soft minty green colorway and then a really soft aqua teal and then a lot of white space. And then there's little flashes of yellow and pink just randomly throughout every so often. It's really pretty. So I highly recommend checking out Primrose Yarn, even though I can't tell you the exact colorway name for this. If you're wondering about like ordering mystery skeins, I would say don't do it from most dyers, but if you look at a dyer and you're like, I love even 70% to 80% of what they do, if not 100%, like I love literally everything Primrose Yarn does. So if I know that, it's not even a question to me. It's like, it's not even a gamble because I'm gonna love it. And so if you like surprises, it's a good way to go. It's also a really good way to get some discounts on yarn, like really fabulous indie dyed, like one-of-a-kind skeins that you can't order again, so you'll just need to use it for a single project, a single skein project. But it's really a great way to get something unique and special for kind of a discounted rate, which reminds me that you should probably check out the Mad Science Lab in my shop, which is where you'll find those kinds of things, just the one-of-a-kinds, the oopsies, the, oh, I have a few of these left and I'm not going to dye them again, so let's put them on a discount, etc. So you can check those out later. But that's my color B. And then color C, whoopsies, is actually this one. And this thing is just so pretty, dark and bright. It's got several shades of pink, and then a couple shades of green, kind of a darker like olivey green, and browns. And this was a skein that I got in a D-stash from a friend online. She was getting rid of some yarn to pay a bill, and I bought a discounted skein from her that I'd always wanted to try. And I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly because I've only seen it online, but I think it's called Adela's Crochet Cottage. She also has the Lola Bean. I don't know if she's switched her company over entirely or if she's running kind of 2 lines, but she has the Lola Bean and Adela's Crochet Cottage. But she's been doing it for a while, and I'd seen several of her colorways before and always wanted to try them, but just hadn't gotten around to trying out her shop yet. And then I saw this skein in the D-stash, and this is called Garden of Good and Evil. And I thought, I have no idea what I'm even going to use that for. It's just beautiful. And so I bought it, and then it came in the mail the same day that I was picking out colors. And that's how it ended up in this shawl, because I was like, oh, this is so pretty. Set it aside, and I'm like looking at colors, and then I look over, and these 4 just spoke to me. And then the last one that I'm doing, my color D, is from Inked Sheep Fibers, which if you have not checked her out, please go check out her shop. She's one of my other very favorite indie dyers. Talia is amazing, and she does these really great speckles and variegateds, and she does really bright, bold colorway as well. She does a really good job at those. And this one is called Victoria, and it was just so pretty. I loved how much white space she left to really show off the speckles, but I loved the deep like wine and burgundy colors in here. So that one is right here, if you can see how that's knitting up in the brioche. And this is, I forget what she called it. I think it's like Wicked Sheep Sock or something like that. But it's basically 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. Just a really good, strong sock yarn. Really awesome for stretchy, cushy socks, but also phenomenal in brioche. I'm really loving how it knits up. So yeah, I'm enjoying this. It's slow going because this shawl is not for the faint of heart. I'm not gonna lie. If this is your first brioche, I will pray for you because it is a little intense. It's not like ridiculously hard, but I've done several brioche projects before without any issues, and this one has some lace and some increases and decreases and some kind of more, you have to really pay attention to where you put your markers. And I will tell you, if you watched my podcast last week about mistakes and heard my humiliating story about how I went off on a designer and it's because I didn't read the notes section and I didn't read my pattern properly and I misunderstood a couple things. And then when she responded, I felt so stupid that I hadn't just read the pattern properly. This is one of those patterns where that will happen to you if you don't read the notes section very carefully. So be sure to read that because there's some very important information about moving the markers. Every so often you have to move your marker over a couple stitches to keep it in the right lace, and then the next row will say knit to 4 stitches before the marker and then do this thing. And if you don't move your marker, you're gonna be really, really off. So make sure you read the notes carefully. And I'm finding this one complicated because I'm having to keep track of where I switch my colors by doing the 4 colors instead of just 2. So if you're at all nervous about this one being a little complicated but you just love it, I would maybe try it with just 2 colors. So you'll need 2 or 3 skeins of each colorway that way instead of just 4 single skeins, but you won't have as much to keep track of because I've got like 2 sets of post-it notes where I'm making my little marks going right now. One for the chart and one for how often I'm switching my colorways so I can make sure that I'm keeping everything straight. So it's kind of intense, but it's beautiful and it really is fun once you read the notes and you get a feel for it. Also, the cast on is not for the faint of heart either. It's a really intense like I-cord tab cast on, and it's very, very difficult. But if you go to her Ravelry, so click the link for this pattern below, and then on there it'll have, you can just go to the designer's Ravelry, or you can hit the link for the knit along Ravelry thread. I think she's got a video where she shows you how to do the cast on in really great detail, and I highly recommend watching that because it's kind of tricky without it. So you definitely want to make sure you know what you're doing on that one. So I do have a couple other things I'm working on. Like I've shown you guys before the Swamp Witch sweater, which is my Swamp Witch colorway, and I'm just making the Armond cardigan, which is a really basic stockinette cardigan with pockets. And I'm slowly working on that. That one is kind of a project I keep at home and I don't work on super often. I do it when I'm like, my brain is totally fried. I'm really trying to push through with these bigger shawls at the moment and get those done. So, plus I've been working on that test knit that I told you is down in the basement blocking. So I haven't had a lot of time to work on my sweater lately, so it's growing very slowly, so I'm not going to bother with showing you that one, but maybe next week or so I will have made more progress. So I wanted to give you guys a little sneak peek of the test knit that I'm doing. I have actually dropped a couple hints on my Instagram recently, but they're very, very subtle, and I haven't really said a whole lot about like, oh, here's the shawl I'm test knitting. And I haven't given any really big pictures of it, so I haven't released pictures of the pattern yet. Of the actual project yet, but I've had a couple pictures recently on my Facebook and Instagram where you'll see a little snippet of color in the background, or I'll show the skeins, that a couple of the colors that I'm using together, and people are like, wow, those look great together, and I'm like, yeah, they do. Stay tuned. There's more coming on that. So I wanted to show you guys, since I can't show you the project yet, I wanted to give you guys a sneak peek of the colors that I picked for the test knit shawl that I am doing. And next week on the podcast, I'm going to show you the shawl and talk a little bit more about some exciting collaborations that I'm doing. So this is a 3-color shawl, and it's by a new designer. And again, stay tuned. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode, because next week we're going to have a lot more about the actual pattern and about kits and discounts and all kinds of great, wonderful things that are coming down the pike. So today I just want to show you the colors. Now, you can use any 3 colors that you want, and you can actually use less. You can use as little as 2 and as many as you want, but I saw several of the other test knitters that tried with multiple colors, and I thought they looked cool, but I really liked the original designer's vision for just the 3 colors, because it looks really cool with 3 colors, especially if they're very graphically contrasting and there is kind of like a softer, more neutral, and some brighter colors. So I chose 3 colors from my shop to do my test knit in. The first one is Siren Song, and I apologize, these are in various stages of awkwardness because I've already knit with them and a couple of them got messed with the cats and I had to wind them up and things. So they look a little the worse for wear, but this is Siren Song. This colorway is one of my older ones. It's a really bright blue tonal. It's like teal, turquoise, and blue all in one, and it's just so pretty. It reminds me of like the ocean in like a fantasy movie, like not a real ocean, but like the ocean in Peter Pan, like a glistening pretty picture of an ocean. It's so bright and so pretty. That's why it's called Siren Song. It reminded me of mermaids. So that one is the contrast color, and then I have two speckled skeins I'm using, and the first one is a really great neutral. It's a bright white background, and then it has all these busy speckles, and it mixes brown with a really bright green and kind of a deeper blue, and little flecks of like beigey, orangey, kind of brownish colors, and a little bit of gray. So it actually has 4 different speckle colors, and then where the speckles hit the yarn, it kind of breaks into multiple colors, and sometimes they overlap and create new colors. So it's just really fun, but it's very, very busy. I don't know if you can see this at all, but as it goes down the strand, there's a lot of white space, but then it's broken by all these splashes of really busy speckles. And this one is called Walk on the Left Side. It was going to be a limited edition colorway that I did last fall. One of my customers had mentioned that she was super into the movie Lady Hawk, which is from the 80s with Matthew Broderick when he's super young, and I am obsessed with that movie. I grew up watching it and like loving it. It's this really great like fantasy story, kind of a fairy tale. If you haven't watched it, definitely go check it out. It's phenomenal. But she really wanted to have some yarn inspired by the movie, and so I created 2 colorways, Navarre and Walk on the Left Side, that were inspired by that film. And this one was inspired by the landscapes in the film, because there's a lot on the cliffs of France where there's these big white cliffs with lots of white stone and white sand, and then there's like splashes of bright green grasses and the blue sky and these old castle ruins, like ancient medieval castles that are in ruins. So all these gray walls with green vines crawling up them, and so that's where this one came from. And it was so beautiful that I dyed up a couple extras that went in the shop, and I decided that I was going to pull one of the old ones that hadn't sold and was just kind of sitting in my back inventory to make this shawl. And I loved it and how it played with the other 2 colors so well that this one is going to be coming back to the shop very soon. So the final colorway that I did is a newer colorway I just introduced a couple months ago, and it's called Luminous Algae. And this one is really hard to categorize because a lot of people look at it and think bright green, and they're not entirely wrong, but it actually, the base is kind of more of like a highlighter yellow. So it does have that greenish cast, but it's more of a bright, intense neon yellow. But it has these greenish, bluish speckles mixed in with these kind of red and pink speckles. And there's just a lot of really bright neon speckles, and then this bright neon highlighter background. And it's like you need to put on sunglasses to look at this thing. It's so bright, which I think is kind of intimidating to a lot of people, and that's why I chose it. I really wanted to show off how beautiful and how wearable this yarn is when it's mixed with other grounding tones, like a really nice neutral and a really, really bright but soft, not busy tonal. And these 3 together are just heaven. And they look pretty here in the skein, but I'm telling you, next week on the podcast, when you see the shawl that it knit up to be, you're gonna go crazy because they're gorgeous. And the shawl pattern is phenomenal because it doesn't use that much yardage. So I started with full skeins, and these are each 400 yards. This is the Foxy sock. I started with 400 yards, and there is plenty. There's almost half of these 2 and at least half of this one, if not probably over half of the 3rd color. So I have enough here to make another project, and I'm trying to decide what I want to do with it. I'm thinking about maybe another So Faded if I add a couple more colors, but I was also thinking I really want to make these into faded vanilla socks, like knit from the toe up and just knit for a while and then fade in the other color. I don't know. I haven't figured out what I'm doing with these yet, but I love them. So that's your sneak peek. Stay tuned. You're going to want to see what's coming next week on the podcast, and after that to the shop. So definitely make sure you subscribe and you tune into my next video to see the finished result and hear more about how you can get your hands on some of this gorgeous yarn and how you can get your hands on that pattern, because it's not out yet, but it's coming very soon, and I have some very special offers and discounts and deals for you guys coming. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's going in my shop update next Monday, and then we'll be done. So for the shop update, one of the things I wanted to show you was something we already mentioned, and that is Mad Science Lab, which is where my oopsies and my one-of-a-kinds and my like tests and base yarns that I'm not sure I'm going to stock in the shop, a lot of those kinds of things go. And I always have stuff in the Mad Science Lab, always. It's never empty. So please go back and check it out. It changes from time to time, so if you haven't been there for a while, go check it out and see what's new. But I have a new thing coming to the Mad Science Lab. This is a skein that was in a batch of Luck of the Irish, which was my St. Patty's colorway that I came up with a few weeks ago, and it hit the shop and sold out instantly, so I dyed up more, and it sold out instantly, and so I dyed up more, and that will be coming to the shop next Monday as well. But this skein from the last batch is an oopsie. So if you've ordered this before or you've seen any of my photos, you'll see that this one has a bit more green to it than the originals. It doesn't have as much white space and there's too much green. It's still beautiful, but some of the speckles got really muddied and a little bit darker than I wanted them to get, and the green ran into the speckles a little too much. So there's nothing wrong with this skein. It's the Banshee fingering, which is 100% superwash merino, 438 yards approximately. It's amazing, and it's great for socks. It's great for shawls, sweaters, whatever. Hello, Phoebe. Sorry, she's really lovey today. She's still mad that we're not playing and that I'm filming a podcast. So just the speckles didn't turn out quite as great as I want. And I have a really solid commitment to making sure that my repeatable colorways or my batches of colors are as close as possible. Each one is a magical, unique work of art and they don't ever match exactly. But I try to get them pretty close, and so I'm really picky. And if one of them comes out just a little too green, it's going in the Mad Science Lab, because I don't want somebody ordering it and then thinking they're getting what I showed on Instagram and then this is what they get, because this didn't really look very close to the others, in my opinion. So, but it's really, really beautiful and it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it except that it's just a little bit too green. So if green's your jam and you don't mind some darker speckles, this thing could be really great, and it is going to be discounted, so you won't have to pay full price. You can get a little deal on it, and there's only one, so go check that out next Monday evening, actually I think afternoon, evening, like 4 or 5 p.m. That's going to be hitting the shop, so you want to make sure that you go get those. Also, I have a couple. I've been doing some more Disappear in a Cloud of Steam, which is an older colorway that I've had for a while. It's a gray with kind of a bluish grayish, like gunmetal-y tinge. So there's several shades of gray in there, but it kind of has a cooler bluish base and just a really good neutral. This one is the Bombshell Worsted. I have several of those in the shop currently, and I'm dyeing up a sweater quantities worth for Knitting in the Heartland for Kith. So this one is actually technically not going in the shop, but there are other ones in there right now, and if you're coming to Kith, you'll find that coming. But while I was doing that, I decided to go ahead and try something a little different I hadn't done before, and I dyed it up in the Seductress, which is my Stellina, Silver Stellina base. So this has the silver sparkle, and it's a sock weight, so it's 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% Stellina. And I love it, you guys. I don't know if you can see the sparkle in here as well as I would like you to, but it really came out nice. It's a really pretty neutral gray with that little hint of sparkle, and I just think it's phenomenal. So there's going to be a few of those in the shop on Monday as well. And then I've restocked an older colorway that hasn't been around for a while, and this one is one of my personal favorites at the moment. I go through phases, and this one is one of my favorites currently, and it's called A Pleasant Patina, and it has this beautiful, like, turquoisey aqua background, kind of a tonal background, and then it has these fun speckles over the top that are kind of like orangey browns, bluish grays, and kind of brown colorways. So this was inspired by a picture of antique rusted keys, like old skeleton keys and stuff, and they, you know how when metal starts to rust and it gets that kind of like orangey rusty look, there's oftentimes that kind of greenish bluish like teal-y kind of patina to it. That's what this was inspired by, and I just love how it came out. So I'm only going to have a couple skeins of the Temptress this time. I'm going to have larger quantities at Knitting in the Heartland in April and some of my trunk shows coming up, but there will be a couple in the shop on the Temptress, and then I'm going to have a few of the Banshee fingering, which is again that 100% superwash merino. So you definitely want to go check it out. This is one of my favorite colorways, and it sells really quickly, so definitely go check that out on Monday. Then I'm going to have more of the Rabid Soccer Mom, which is a recent colorway I just came up with at the last shop update 2 weeks ago. This one was in there on the Dryad DK. These look quite a bit different, but they're actually from the same pan and the same batch. It's just they're skeined in different spots, so they kind of look different, but that gives you an idea of what those look like. I love this one. Rabid Soccer Mom is a fun, bright mix. I think of it as like grown-up kid colors. It's like the traditional pink and blue boy and girl colors, but it's like grown up. It's like a deep jewelly purpley pink and like a bright crystal clear turquoisey blue, and there's some white background space, and then there's some brown speckles mixed in there, and it's just a really crazy, fun, adventurous, bright skein. It's very busy and very, very fun. And if you don't like speckles, you won't like this because it's very speckly. I love it. So this one sold really fast. Last time I only had 3 skeins of the Dryad DK, which is my MCN merino cashmere and nylon DK weight, and those sold very quickly. So I did more of the Dryad. There's going to be 6 of those. And then I also did the Dryad sock, which is the same merino cashmere and nylon quantities, but in a fingering weight. And this particular base yarn that I get comes in a different put up than most of my other yarns. So when I lay them out in a circle, it's a lot shorter and smaller of a circle, so it's a thicker, smaller circle than the longer, skinnier ones. So when I twist them up in skeins, they have this nice, short, fat, plump little look. They're so cute. They crack me up, but I don't like reskeining my yarn unless I have to. I do it if it looks really messy or if it's tangly so that you don't have to deal with tangles when you wind it. But in most of my yarns these days, I'm getting really good at not having many tangles, and I like that you can see the colors a little bit easier on this. So I tend to not reskein. So that's why this one is really, really short and plump, and this one is really, really long and skinny, is because they come in 2 different put-ups, so different skein sizes when I get them from my suppliers. Okay, so there will be some of both of those Dryads, fingering and DK. And then I could not help myself and decided to dye up more of my inoculation against nihilism. This colorway is to die for. I created this for a dye-along challenge a couple months ago, and it sold out pretty quickly, and then I meant to get it back in the shop and just never did. So I finally have it back in the shop. Excuse me, I can't talk for a minute. This is the Fairy Wing Fingering, which is my merino and silk, superwash merino and silk base. It's absolutely divine if you have not knit with it before. And this colorway mixes bright, bright neon yellows with a really pretty couple different shades of purple and violet, and then a really bright green and this really, really jewelly sapphire blue. And there's a few speckles mixed in there. It's gorgeous, and it's gorgeous on the Fairy Wing because the silk content of this yarn just makes those colors really shine. It makes them very bright and very intense and shiny, and it has a great sheen and great drape. So this would be a phenomenal sweater or shawl. And the 2-ply structure of this yarn makes it really strong, so you can do sweaters or even socks. So definitely check that out. There's going to be 6 skeins of the Fairy Wing in the shop, and I just am obsessed with it. It's so pretty. It's so, so bright. Okay, the next thing I did was another oopsie. I was trying to work off of a photo, an inspiration photo that I'd found on Pinterest, and the photo had some really cool greens and like pinks and oranges, but it was very, very, everything, it looked like you were looking through a fog, and it had this real moody feel. And so I was trying to do that, and I started playing around, and it started looking really ugly. Like, I just wanted to cry. And so in frustration, I started speckling and dumping colors on top of colors, and it turned out gorgeous. Nothing like the original photo. So if you're looking for the original photo, sorry, it won't be there, which is why I'm not going to tell you what photo it is because it doesn't even remotely resemble it. But what happened was just pure poetry. So thankfully, I took copious notes because when I started out, I thought I was going to have this great new colorway. It was actually going to be our next steampunk colorway for the steampunk club, and I was taking very, very careful notes so I could recreate it. And then when it all went south and I started dumping, at first I didn't take notes, but then after a couple pots of color, I was like, this is starting to look real promising. I better write down before I forget what I did. So I wrote down really quickly, and I just re-dyed it yesterday, and it came out really good and matching enough that it's a repeatable colorway now. This is not one that's going to be in the shop super frequently, so it's not going to be dyed to order. It's just going to be when I have it, because it is an oopsie that took lots and lots of pots to correct. It's really time consuming compared to my other yarns, but I thought it was worth it because it's just so pretty. It's very, very purple. It has little flashes. I love this orange in here that's really, really pretty. And then it has flashes of green and gray and pink and brown and everything, and it's just so pretty. So there's only going to be a few, but there will be, I think, 4 of those in the shop on Monday as well. I don't have a name for that one yet. That's the other thing today. I'm going to work on labeling and naming and taking photos over the next couple days so that the shop update on Monday will be all pretty with great photos and new updated quantities. And so some of these don't have names yet. So that's one of the ones that doesn't have a name, but check the shop and you'll see it. Okay, quick plug to remind you that the steampunk colorway for this month is still available through March 15th, which is next Thursday. So you need to make sure that you get your order in before Thursday. And this is this month's Steampunk Club. These colorways are exclusive limited edition yarns, which means they may come back to the shop. This one I can guarantee you is definitely coming back to the shop because look at how gorgeous it is. But they won't be coming back for a while. Steampunk clubs are usually at least 6 months locked in the vault, which means that for 6 months after March, so starting in April, they won't be available for at least 6 months, and some of them won't come back until later, and some of them won't come back ever. So if you want them, now's your time to get them, because you don't know if they're going to come back, and even if they do, like I already told you, I'm pretty sure this one's coming back because I'm in love, but if it does, it's not going to be for at least 6 months to a year or more. So I would highly recommend getting it. This one is called Infernal Devices. If you're a steampunk fan, you'll recognize that phrase. And this just has a bunch of really awesome speckles and all these great like olivey, amber, and gold colors, caramel. Oh, it's so good. I could eat it up. It's delicious. So definitely go grab your March club because those signups close on the 15th. Okay, here's the sneak peek I posted on Instagram earlier this week. This was it started out as brass goggles, which is my patina gold colorway, and then I made an error in my measuring and created a little too much of a patina in the background. It started getting a little too green and brown, and then I thought, well, heck, since I made an oopsie, let's just go a little further and see what we can do. And so I kept adding color, and then I added speckles, and now you get this incredible brown and mustard and gold green speckle. It's so pretty. This one also doesn't have a name yet, but it will later today. I'm going to have several of those in the shop. This is not a new colorway, but it's not one that I've had a lot of in the shop. This is my springy ode to spring called Hidden in the Cherry Blossoms, and this is the Dryad fingering, the Dryad sock again. So it's just like some really soft yellowy springy greens with some purples and pinks and silvers and mauve. It's just, oh, it's so pretty. And there's a lot of white space. I did a really good job leaving white space on this one, you guys. So there'll be several skeins of this really cushy Dryad sock. And last but not least, and like I said, there will be more than the ones I'm showing you here. These are just some of the ones. But last but not least, there is a brand new speckle that doesn't even have a name yet. And this one is also very springy. I was really trying to come up with some new springtime colorways in the shop this week when I was dyeing. So this one was just a let's experiment and play. And I love it. Look at those great speckles, you guys. So pretty. It mixes this really bright, clear, crystal clear blue with some yellowy greens and a deeper green and some pinks and purples and golds, and it's just gorgeous. Lots of white space, not as much as the Hidden in the Cherry Blossoms, but still a decent amount of white space on this one, and you just get those really pretty colors. So gotta come up with a name for this one too, but that one will also be in the shop, and a few more. There's a couple other things downstairs still drying. So I hope you'll be able to check out that shop update. I believe that is March 12th, which is Monday, right in time for spring break, so you can treat yourself over the spring. Spring is coming, and it's starting to feel like it here in Kansas City finally. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a little long, but hopefully it gave you some fun ideas, some new projects to check out, and I would love to hear from you guys what else you want to know on the podcast. I've got some new exciting ideas coming down the pike, but I would love to hear you guys' ideas, so leave me a comment below. Tell me what you want to learn about, or what you want to hear about, or what you want to know about me, or my business, or whatever else, and I hope you guys have a great week. It's now time to cast off. Love you.